Algebra 1, this is 2.5, solving absolute value equations. So we're going to solve equations now that actually have absolute values in them. And so we probably should talk about what is absolute value. Absolute value are these two straight poles, we'll say, on the sides of a variable or a number. And the way you would read this one is the absolute value of A. What is absolute value, though?
The absolute value.
Yeah, what is absolute value? Absolute value, guys, if we're talking about a number line, is the distance from zero. Here's the thing. If I said you're at home, you came to school, how far away do you live?
Like
Miles. Just estimate.
12.
12 miles, okay? Now you're at school. How far away from you
12.
from home?
We talked about that.
Yeah, we talked about this. It's 12 because absolute value, again, is... It doesn't matter if I'm going to 12 or if I'm going to negative 12. This distance and that distance are the same. They're both 12. So, remember, absolute values, always turn it positive. If it's already positive, it stays positive. So, absolute value of negative 12 is 12. Absolute value of 12 is 12 as well. We just kind of talked about that. So, are there any questions on that? No. Now, if I'm going to go to solve an absolute value, I'm going to turn this. If I had something like the absolute value of x is equal to 2, what values, when I take the absolute value of, will give me 2? 2 works. So x would equal 2. So the absolute value of 2 is 2. There's another one. What's the other one?
Negative 2.
It's negative 2.
No, you can't say negative.
It's a negative 2. Because the absolute value of negative 2 is 2. So, guess what? There is a little formula or a way to do this. And I do believe your book uses A, that if, we'll say if in front, if the absolute value of A is equal to B, and B has to be greater than or equal to 0, okay, we're going to put a line across here. B has to be greater than or equal to 0. Guys, an absolute value, since B is on the outside, you can't equal a negative number. By definition, absolute values are positive. Can never equal a negative. If it equals a negative, there's no solution. You can't do it. It says, then A will have to equal B, or A equals the opposite of B. That's what it means. So I'm either equal to the thing on the outside, or I'm equal to the opposite of that thing. Hence, going up to our example above with the 2's. Absolute value of x is equal to 2. One of your answers, just drop the absolute values. X is equal to 2. We're done. Oh wait, we're not done because there's another one. It's also equal to the opposite of 2, which is negative 2. The first thing I want us to do, though, before we start to solve equations, is to simplify an expression. So we got 4a minus the absolute value. Those are absolute values here. Absolute values of 3 times b plus 2c. If a equals negative 2, b equals negative 3, and c equals 2. So let's try that on your own. We've already done things like this before. Just make sure absolute values act like grouping symbols. So you have to do what's inside first, work your way out, and then once we're done with this, we'll do solving an equation, and we're good to go. So, I've already took the liberty of subbing in A, B, and C into their respective places, and now we can take a look from left to right to see what we can do. I'm hoping that you see that out here I have 4 times negative 2, which would be a negative 8, which is unaffected by the fact that we have absolute values. So now that means I can do that on the outside. Now I can move in. And what's 3 times negative 3?
9.
Negative 9. And 2 times 2 is 4. So therefore, I am not going to take that negative on the outside of that group. That cannot come in. Absolute value has to be done first. And what's negative 9 plus 4? Negative 9 plus 4. You owe someone $9. You give them $4. You now owe them?
Negative minus 5.
Yeah, you owe them 5, or you're minus $5. Now you can take the absolute value. The absolute value of a negative 5 is?
Positive 5.
Right. But here's the thing. I changed them to parentheses and changed it to a positive 5, but that parentheses still has a negative out front. So what's negative 8 minus 5? Ooh, no, no, no.
It's negative 15.
Negative.
I did it wrong. I got negative 3.
I got negative.
Can't be negative. It's not negative 3 either.
Negative 15.
Guys, they're both negative numbers. If they're both negative numbers,
It's a positive.
no, that's when you multiply.
Negative 13.
Yes, it's a negative 13 because you could take, I did not hear that, sorry. 8 plus 5 is 13, they take the common sign. If I add two positives, they'll stay positive. Remember, when you're adding or subtracting, the bigger sign gets the go. So it gets negative 13. Any questions to that?
No.
Make sure you substitute correctly and you use your order of operations. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Now, the last problem type you're going to see is something like 2x minus 4, absolute value of all of that, equals something like 10. So, what it is, remember guys, we now have an absolute value equaling a number. We need to get rid of the absolute values. I can't subtract or add things out of that absolute value until I get rid of them. So this goes back to this slide, and I have to use this idea. Something inside an absolute value equals a number on the outside. That means the thing inside the absolute value can equal the thing on the outside, and it'll equal the opposite of that outside. Very important you do both. If you don't do both, you only have half the problem. So, I'm going to split it. It splits one of them to 2x plus, or minus 4, sorry. Notice I'm not changing anything inside. And that's going to equal 10. I'm just basically taking the absolute values off. The other one, way over here, is going to be the exact same stuff from inside, but I'm going to set it equal to the opposite of 10. Okay? So the opposite of 10. And now you just solve these separately. You should get two answers. The really cool thing about it is that in both of these, the steps are exactly the same thing to solve it. Add 4. So 2x equals 14, yes? And then divide by 2. So x is going to equal 7. And I still am going to add 4. And 2x is equal to, in this case, what's negative 10 plus 4?
14.
It's not 14. Negative 6. Divide by 2. So x equals negative 3. So we have two answers. X equals 7 or x equals negative 3. Hey, we just solved an equation. What can we do with those numbers? Check it by plugging it back into the original and make sure they work. That's what you should be doing. Remember, anytime an absolute value is set equal to a negative, it can't work.